All right, so the budget-friendly rifle returns. Now that we got it working reliably, thanks to a new bolt carrier group from BCM, and we know that the rifle is relatively trustworthy, it's probably time for some upgrades. And when I say that, what I mean is accessories that will help enhance the capabilities of this weapon system. So the goal of this video is to share some budget-friendly AR-15 accessories that can really enhance what this rifle is capable of while not breaking the bank, because this is a budget-friendly rifle, which means if you're going to spend a bunch of money on upgrades, it's probably stuff you should have spent money on when it came to the original rifle itself if you're going to go high-end and Gucci, right? Why would you put really expensive components on a really cheap gun? So I'm going to keep budget in mind throughout this process, and I'm going to share with you my suggestions of what I would use to make this rifle more capable while still not being completely crap tier items. None of this no-name Amazon grab bag stuff. Everything's going to be of a certain amount of quality, but like I said, still budget friendly. So I do want to thank Midway USA for making videos like this possible. Of course, everything we discuss in today's video can be found through Midway USA, so a big thanks to them. And just so you're aware, there's a lot you can do with a rifle like this, set up just like this, but it is lacking some functionality that you want to have in a more modern fighting rifle. So let's go through each component. I'll tell you exactly what we're swapping out. I'll show you the process, and then I'll also tell you how much everything costs, and we'll do a grand total at the very end. And then you can see if that's something that you think would be worth investing in, or if you have other suggestions or advice about those components, make sure you leave them in the comments below, and let's make this thing a little bit more modernized. All right, so the first thing I'm going to swap out on this rifle is the stock. I really don't like this M4 style stock. It's just not my favorite. So we're going to go ahead and bust that off real quick. Okay, slides off real easy. And we're going to replace it with the MOE fixed stock, which is the FCS from Magpul. It's 38 bucks. Now here's the thing. This is still the most affordable stock that gives you a solid foundation with multiple sling attachment points. Now it's not adjustable, which you could think losing that adjustability would be a big negative, but in reality, the length of pull is pretty solid, at least in my opinion, and we're not going to be using a magnified optic on this rifle. So it really just works for the price point. Compared to the MOE adjustable stock, that's going to be 42 bucks, and it's all wobbly and stuff. And then if you do want like a legit adjustable stock from Magpul, you're going to get the CTR at the least, and that's $62. And yeah, you get a QD socket and everything on it, but now you're talking close to double the price of this stock. So like I said, we're staying budget friendly. We're going to put the FCS on here, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so we got the Magpul MOE FCS fixed carbine stock on there now, no problem at all. No wobble, nothing like that. It's very secure, and it's just a lot nicer than the standard M4 style stock you see here, especially with this cheese grater butt pad. Not a big deal if you're wearing kit like a plate carrier or a chest rig, but if you're wearing just a shirt or something like that, it can be kind of uncomfortable. This is a rubber butt pad, much nicer. Let's move on. All right, so next up is going to be the A2 style pistol grip here. I just don't really like it, especially the angle and that finger groove. So we're going to remove that and replace it with the Magpul MOE K2 pistol grip. It has a more vertical angle, it's a little bit more comfortable, it doesn't have any finger grooves, and this is a really solid pistol grip. Even on a higher end build, you really can't go wrong with this particular grip. So this is only $18. Not a very expensive upgrade, but one that's going to make a huge difference, especially when it comes to some of the correction of the length of pull of having a non-adjustable stock. This vertical grip angle might be a little bit better based on your construction, of course. So let's go ahead and swap those out, and then we'll move on. All right, so we got the MOE K2 grip installed. Looking good, feels really good. And now the stock and pistol grip package is just much nicer, a little bit more ergonomic, feels better for me at least. I think it was definitely a worthy upgrade between the two of these, and these two together was still only $56, which really isn't too bad, especially compared to how much you can actually spend on these components if you really start going higher end. So let's move on to the next part of the rifle we're going to make a pretty major change on. So now's when we add something to make the rifle look really cool while adding some functionality, and that's a quad rail two-piece drop-in handguard. Now this is from AR Stoner. It's aluminum and it costs $80. Now I could have saved a lot of money by doing something else that was polymer. As you see right here, this carbine style handguard is polymer, and this is just like the basic standardized piece of equipment you get with a lot of these budget-friendly rifles, but it doesn't allow for any attachments or accessories. So it does a good job of being a heat shield, and that's about it. Now, if I would have got an MOE M-Lock handguard from Magpul, it would have been 35 bucks as opposed to $80, right? But here's the thing, this has QD sling swivel attachment points built into it. If I need to add one of those to another handguard, we're talking at least minimum, probably another 15 bucks if you want to get one from a quality company. And then you also are going to have some sort of mounting solution for adding a light and adding a pressure switch. And at the bare minimum, if you had to add, let's say, an M-Lock piece of Picatinny rail, then you're talking another 10 bucks. So in reality, even with an M-Lock MOE handguard from Magpul, with all the additional requirements, you're still going to be at about $60. Whereas this puts you at $80, gives you all the functionality you need, and it's aluminum, which should be, more rigid and more durable over time. So I went with this, not to mention the vibes. You can't really go wrong with that. So let's swap this out, get rid of this old school handguard that doesn't really add any additional capability, and then we'll keep going from there. Now we've got the AR Stoner drop-in quad rail handguard installed, and I would say it looks pretty good. Feels very solid. It's got these torque screws in the bottom here that keep it nice and secure. And in all honesty, I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. As you can see, here's the old plastic handguard that we removed. Not the easiest process. They do make a tool specifically for removing these handguards that you might want to use. I didn't use it, but that's because I don't switch these out very often. But if you're finding yourself switching these out a lot, you should probably get that tool. So everything's starting to look really good, isn't it? Let's go ahead and move on to the next portion that's going to make this a little bit more handy, let's just say. All right, so now that we got a drop-in quad rail, it only makes sense to add a vertical foregrip. And this is the Ergo Pop Bottle. It runs 18 bucks. There are cheaper ones like the Pro Mag, but I just don't know about the quality there. This one seems to have a solid lockup system for the Picatinny rail, which, by the way, we have a lot of now. You can see right here, it's got a cross bolt, and it kind of completes that M4A1 type look, and it also gives you somewhere to rest your hand if the rail gets hot, as well as index your hand for activating any switches or anything else that might be on here later. So we're going to add this real quick and just kind of complete that look. All right, I got that Ergo Pop Bottle on there, and I mean, come on, that looks good, right? Pretty awesome. And obviously this is not a clone rifle, guys, so don't get all worked up, but there is some practicality here, and at the same time, it does look cool. So let's move on to the next thing that's probably a little more important. So one thing I wanted to do was add a red dot sight to this rifle. Red dots are awesome. They're fast, they're intuitive, they're great in low light conditions. And of course, this is a Sig Sauer Romeo 5, which is a budget-friendly red dot sight at $150, but it's actually good enough for preparedness purposes too. These are proven good little red dot optics. Now you can go cheaper, but I wouldn't necessarily want to count on anything cheaper than this or a couple other options out there like Primary Arms or Hollow Sun. All of those are pretty good, but they all hover around this same $150 price point. So this is the red dot optic I chose, and everything's good to go here except for one issue. And this is something that I want to hear about in the comments below. Let me know if you think my solution here was appropriate or if you think that there would have been a better way to do this, okay? So the red dot comes with a mount from the factory, which is great. And of course you get a low profile mount as well. The only problem here is that in order to use this red dot optic with this mount, I would have to remove my detachable carry handle, which I like quite a bit. Not only do I think it looks cool, but it has a very good rear sight system integrated into it, which with the front sight post makes for a very solid iron sight system. If I remove it to put this red dot on here, I suddenly don't have a rear sight, which means I'm still going to add some sort of backup sight because this is a red dot optic. That means it's electronic dependent, doesn't have a etched reticle or anything like that. So if the batteries die or this goes down, then I have no aiming solution. So if I'm going to have a red dot as the only optic on a rifle, I do want some sort of iron sight system. Now, I don't want to remove this because if I do and I mount this right here where the carry handle is right now, I still have to get a backup iron sight. A Magpul polymer backup sight is $57, okay? And I already have this. And if you want the good kind, the steel sights, because let's be honest, the polymer ones just aren't that great, the steel sights from Magpul are $109. So what I found that's cheaper than both of those options is this Weaver AR-15 single rail, which is made for the carry handle. It's a carry handle mount, and this thing is 30 bucks. So I'm going to go ahead and install this on the carry handle, and then we're going to put the red dot on top of that. And then I'll still have my rear sighting system. This allows you to see through the rear sight to the front sight post, even with it installed. And then I'll be able to have my red dot on top, which is kind of the height I'm used to anyway at this point, especially when running night vision. And we'll have the best of both worlds, and this is still cheaper than having to ditch the carry handle and add a backup sight. So yeah, am I stacking tolerances? Of course, because this rail is going to be attached to this carry handle, which is then attached to the upper receiver. So you have a lot of mounting solutions that could possibly create weak points in the system. But in all reality, I haven't had an issue with this carry handle mount at all. And this is an AR Stoner detachable carry handle. And I have zero doubts that it's going to be fine. But if the worst case scenario happens and this mounting system breaks off or something and the red dot no longer holds on, I'll still have a solid iron sight system. So not so worried about it. Let's go ahead and get this installed. We'll put this on the carry handle and then I'll install the red dot sight using the low profile mount right here. And I think we'll have a pretty good optical solution. We got that red dot mounted up and I think it looks awesome. We've got that Weaver carry handle mount installed into the detachable carry handle here. We've got the low profile mount on the Sig Sauer Romeo 5 now, and it's up there. But honestly, it's not so bad. It looks really tall, but if you ever do night vision stuff or you use some of the taller red dot mounts, it's very similar to that. And I'm 6'3", so being taller, it actually makes this sight pretty comfortable. And then I still have access to my iron sights as well. So I like this a lot. I think this is really practical, and honestly, it adds a lot of versatility to this particular rifle. So let's move on to the next component. The next thing you need on any fighting rifle is going to be a weapon mounted light. And this is a Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount HLX. It's $119. And honestly, when it comes to budget-friendly weapon mounted lights, Streamlight is the go-to brand for me. I think that this is the cheapest I would go for a light that I want to rely on in the sense of who knows what, SHTF or something like that. These do well. I haven't had any issues with my Streamlights. They do a good job. They have a good output. And this one comes with all the stuff you need to run a weapon mounted light. It has a pressure switch. It has a mount as well as an M-LOK offset mount. They're really starting to step it up when it comes to what Streamlight's putting out there. It has the batteries and everything else. And now that we have this rail system, we can actually mount a light to this platform, whereas before we could not. So I'll get this mounted up, set up with the pressure switch and everything else in the way that I want to run it, and then we'll move on from there. Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount HLX is now installed, and got the pressure pad installed on top just because due to the lack of mounting options here, this light would be really far back on the rail in order to activate with the thumb click, which is generally considered to be more sturdy and more reliable over time. But I haven't really had any personal issues with pressure pads, and this sets up the rifle to be a lot more comfortable for my use. And of course, this is a very bright light. Like, it does a very good job of illuminating. So all that's set up. I got the cable management under control here as well. And now we have one last thing to do before we're ready to take this thing out and shoot it. So let's do that. In order to complete the setup, we need a sling. Slings are a requirement in my opinion, especially when it comes to defensive rifles. And this is the AR Stoner padded 2-point QD sling. Now, this is only $12. Here's the thing, you can tell it's only $12, but it is still only $12. And it comes with QD sling swivels. It also came with HK style hooks you can switch out if you'd rather as well. And then it has the padding right here. And then it has the adjustment system, which is where you can tell the money was saved. So what do I mean by that? Well, you have this pull tab here, right, which is how you tighten it. And then you have this system here, which is the release. So you pull on this and it lets go of a latch basically. And then you can loosen the sling, okay? And then you pull here on the tab and tighten it. But this tab is really just the whole part of the sling that you would loosen or tighten that's held onto this piece with some hook and loop, okay? So as you can see, like, it's not connected now, still tightening, right? And then same goes for this latch. It does the basic rudimentary job of being a 2-point sling that has QD swivels that can be adjusted on the fly. But it is definitely $12 in quality, and it's not the sling that I would necessarily suggest. But if you're on a really tight budget, 12 bucks is kind of hard to beat considering like what this comes with. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in it. Even the swivels are really lightweight and don't seem like they'll be very durable. I have a feeling they're probably not going to do very well over time. So this sling will work, but honestly, I would recommend at least picking up something like a Magpul MS1 sling with QD sling swivels. And this sling is $64. But this sling is actually a good sling. Is Magpul the best when it comes to slings? No, there are some really good sling manufacturers out there, but the Magpul has nothing wrong with it. And it always does what it's supposed to efficiently. It's comfortable, it's durable, they hold up really well. I have zero issue trusting an MS1 sling from Magpul. I do have some issues trusting this AR Stoner sling, but it is only $12. So I'm going to use it and just kind of see, but in all reality, I'll probably end up switching this thing out for a Magpul or something else just because it is $12. And you can tell. But hey, we're on a budget here. So sling is going on the rifle, and then I guess we'll go test this thing out and just kind of see how it shoots and see how I like the setup and ask you for some of your opinions. All right, so we got the setup complete, and so far so good. I actually don't have many complaints. Everything's running fine. The rifle's running good now that we replaced that bolt carrier group. We also have good functionality when it comes to having a white light that's very strong. Streamlight ProTac HLX rail mount. Can't really beat it at that price point with 1,000 lumen output. Very strong light. Sig Romeo 5 got it zeroed at 50 yards. It's performing perfectly fine. There's nothing happening here with the mount and all the tolerance stacking that you see when it comes to the detachable carry handle and everything else. It's been fine. And it's zeroed. This is all rock solid. I really don't have any concerns with it. Magpul furniture's been good to go. K2 grip, you can't go wrong. The FCS stock, I do have the sling looped through the sling loop here, just so you're aware in case, because it is kind of confusing. This is not a QD attachment point. This is a receptacle for a QD attachment point kit that Magpul sells separately. So if you add the kit, now the savings that you made by buying the stock aren't really adding up to be worth it as much, let's just say. So just be aware of that, but that's why I'm using the sling loop, because it works perfectly fine. I have no complaints there. Even the Ergo Bottle Pop VFG, I don't mind it. Look, this rifle's not set up like the rifles I would personally go grab right now if I had to go grab a rifle. I have rifles I've invested a lot more into, but this rifle is set up really well while staying on a budget and still perfectly capable of everything I need it to do. It has a white light, it's got an optic, it's got an iron sight set to back up that red dot electronic dependent optic, and it's also reliable, at least now anyway. The only thing I don't like about it so far is the sling. I told you it was $12. I told you I might have to replace it, but I just want to demonstrate that really quickly here for you. So right now it's fully tightened, right? The loosening tab is here. It's always in my armpit no matter how I adjust the length of the sling. It's just not in a good location. I pull on it, loosen it up. Here is the tightening tab. We can tighten it back up. As you can see, now we have all this extra slack here because the tab is just held on by that hook and loop field right there, right? So you get a lot of snag points when it comes to this sling. There's a lot of stuff hanging off of it. It's not very ergonomic in the sense of placement for the controls of the sling. And it just doesn't instill a lot of confidence when it comes to long-term durability. So if you only have $12 to spend, it's probably the best sling you can buy for $12. I will give it that. It has all that functionality. It is padded. It comes with the QD sling swivels and the HK hooks as well. But I'm probably going to replace it. It's just not my cup of tea. Just my 2 cents, okay? Now, how much did that all cost? Because I know we talked about that in the beginning of the video. To do all the upgrades on this rifle that I showed you, it was $465. Now that includes a red dot optic and a weapon mounted light that are both of decent quality, right? And those things aren't cheap no matter how you do it. And if you go too cheap on those items, you're buying stuff that's probably not worth owning. And that's just been my experience. I know you might have like a $40 red dot that works perfectly fine for you, but how hard have you actually pushed it? That's just a question I have to ask, because I've had other cheaper red dots just, let's just say, not do what they're supposed to do, okay? So this is as cheap as I would go comfortably while still relying on these items to defend my life with. And I would be fine with that. I would be fine defending my life with a Romeo 5 and a Streamlight ProTac HLX rail mount. They're good quality lights and optics, and they're still relatively affordable compared to their competitors. So that's where I'm at with those. Now, without the light and the optic, the total cost of like the furniture and everything else was $196, I believe. So if you didn't care about getting a light and an optic, you could have done all the other stuff for under 200 bucks. But for 465 bucks, we got a fully capable fighting rifle that has everything that I would need in the sense of requirements. Low light capabilities with the red dot. We have the white light as well. We have the backup iron sight system still included. The Sling, obviously, which I'm probably going to replace, but it is still here and it is doing its job. All those things are there, and I think that's a pretty good value because optics and lights are just not inexpensive. And this rail, don't forget, was 80 bucks. But you know what? So far, so good. I have no complaints about that. This is an AR Stoner dropping quad rail, and it is tight. There is no wiggle. It doesn't rattle or anything. It is really locked up tight. I have no issue assuming that this rail will last for quite a while. I mean, it feels solid. So we'll see as time goes on, but for the price point compared to like Midwest Industries or some of those other brands, I mean, it seems good to go, you know? And the only reason I didn't get a UTG rail, which is actually cheaper, is because it doesn't come with QD Sling swivel sockets. So because of that, it was gonna cost me more to add those anyway. So I just went for the AR Stoner. I also wanted to try it out. And so far, so good. Honestly, rock solid. So hopefully that gives you some ideas to think about when it comes to budget. Hopefully that gives you some ideas to give me in the comments below. If there anything you would have done differently, are there other optics you would have chosen, or is there a different way you would have mounted this optic? Like, what would you have done differently? I'm actually curious. Let me know in the comments. This way everyone can learn from that. I also want to mention that I know some of you are like, Magic Pepper, why are you wearing a plate carrier? Well, first off, you got to wear this stuff if you own it, or else you probably just shouldn't even own it. But second off, this is actually the Fortis Alpha plate carrier from Premier Body Armor, and it just came out, and it's part of their new budget-friendly line. This is a budget-friendly plate carrier, and the plates inside are also budget-friendly for their capability, and they have plates from level 3 to level 4. This whole new line is way more affordable than their other stuff. It's all made with USA-made components and materials. The only perceived issue is that it's made overseas, but not in China. So you don't have to worry about that part. But here's the thing. They wanted to offer affordable body armor to people who just can't afford the made in the USA high-end stuff that they usually sell. And this is the line they came up with. And so far, this has been a good plate carrier. I don't have any issues with it, but we'll see as time passes on. And in order to actually try these things out and test them, I got to get out here and wear them and see how they do. So I'll be wearing it more often just to kind of put it through its paces, let's just say. I'll have links down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment if you want to check out the Fortis line, because I think it is a good value for what they're trying to offer everyone. And I do have a good relationship with Premier Body Armor, so I don't have any reason to believe that the stuff they're importing from overseas is subpar quality. And I will be testing out the different armor plates ballistically on video, and then I'll share those results with everybody. So I think that'll be good for everyone to have that information, and I think it'll be interesting. So be on the lookout for that video. Anything else you need from me at all, you know what to do. Go to magicpepper.com. Please let me know what you think about this build. I try to be budget friendly. I'm trying to give people options that might not have the resources to go all out when it comes to stuff like their fighting rifle. And any information you can share down in the comments is also going to be helpful. And you know what? There's one more little thing I want to leave you with here. The cheapest accessory that you can get for your AR-15, the absolute cheapest that actually has practical value and will actually do something for you, is this right here. Well, what is that, Magic Pepper? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a military surplus muzzle cover. Look at that. What's that for? You drop your gun in the mud. Drop your gun in the snow. Keeps obstructions out of your barrel. Not the worst thing to have. We're going to test that out a little bit later in another video, but I just wanted to mention that too, because these are really inexpensive and you can actually find them at Midway USA. Big thanks to them for helping out with this video in particular. Anything else from me that you need, I already told you what to do. That's going to be it for Magic Prepper.